Welcome to Homeschool is a Work of Heart. I'm Melissa Webb, and after years in the classroom and years homeschooling and supporting those in home education, and even more years creating curriculum for families like yours, I have learned this. Homeschooling isn't about perfection. It is about purpose. And this podcast is here to encourage you, to guide you, and to remind you that what you're doing truly matters. Are you ready to get started? Let's go. Well, hello everyone. Welcome back to Homeschool is a Work of Heart. I am so happy that you are here. I hope you like this week's title, or you're at least a little bit curious about the accountability advantage. Most people I know like having the upper hand, right? Just like having an advantage in life. It's almost like, I don't know, a benefit maybe. And so I thought that'd be a good title because I think teaching our children to be accountable really gives them an advantage. And we're going to talk about that. But I have to start with a little story time. So we're going to go back to when I was a kid, right? Elementary age. I had the worst dentist ever. My mom still apologizes. Not only was he scary, but he was mean. And I had gotten a cavity and I was going to get it filled. It was like the first time I was ever having something like this happen. And I was really scared. I didn't know what it would be like, but I heard I was going to have a shot in my gums. It did not sound good. So when I showed up and he's like, "All right, are you ready?" And he was just so cold. And I said, "I'm scared. I'm really scared about today." And I remember him calling me a baby. And I wasn't a baby. I was in elementary school, probably like fourth or fifth grade. And that actually made me cry. And so then he like leans down to me and in this harsh whisper, he says, "Don't you dare cry and scare my other patients." And I was just terrified. Like, obviously, this still is in my mind decades later. So I made it through all of that. He was even the guy who had to take out my wisdom teeth in high school. It was just a horrific experience. So, of course, when I left home and started college, I stopped going to the dentist. As soon as my mom stopped making my appointments for me, I went years without going to the dentist. Why? It's obvious, right? They are scary. That's why. So it wasn't until my probably first year of teaching. Now I'm all grown up and I have my own health package and I'm supposed to pick a dentist, and I'd actually moved to a different city. And so I was talking to another teacher friend, and she told me about her dentist and how much she loved him. And I just remember thinking, "You actually love your dentist?" And she's like, "He's the greatest guy. He makes me laugh every time." I'm like, "Oh my gosh, okay, I'll give him a shot." And I did. And when I first saw Dr. Janoschek, who is now retired, I sat down with him and I said, "Can I talk to you first?" And I told him all about my situation. He felt terrible, and he said I wasn't the only one who'd shared a similar story. And I will say he was probably one of the very best dentists I could have ever hoped to find. He was my dentist all the way through those 20s. And then when our boys needed to go to the dentist, he was their dentist. Now, he has since retired. I have had two others since him, and I do go regularly to the dentist now. But I also will tell you, I have never enjoyed the experience. People have made it tolerable, so I go. I know it's important for me, so I go. But in full transparency, I still get uneasy when the reminder goes off on my phone or I see it on my calendar every 6 months. I'll just be like, "Oh, in 3 days I have to go to the dentist." So I do go. And I'm sure at this point you're like, "And this has what to do with what?" Well, it's about accountability. Because I will not leave the dentist office without setting my next scheduled appointment, I know that is an important piece of accountability for me. It will get me there because I put it in my calendar. If I didn't, if I was just like, I'll remember later or in 6 months, I'll call them, I probably wouldn't go. I just know myself. I need more accountability than that. So I don't leave until I get it in my phone, and that gets me there every time in that seat. Accountability is such a powerful tool. And I feel like it can get such a bad rap because some people think of accountability like putting pressure on somebody, but holding people accountable is not only useful. I'm going to share with you this week how I think it can be your secret sauce advantage. I kind of see it like this: motivation, which I love, but I see motivation as a visitor. I invite her to stay longer, but she doesn't always. She's like, gotta go, and out she walks. So motivation is a visitor, but structure, and that's where I feel like accountability fits in, is more like a roommate, always there. Dependable, reliable, hopefully, if you have a good roommate and you have good accountability, that's how it's gonna feel. So I thought that we could talk about why it is a skill, and that's good because that means we can teach it. It's not a personality trait. Some people will say, oh, I think it's just that's her personality. That's not my personality. It is something I've had to work on. It's not something that just magically instills itself in our children. So keep that in mind and then decide, you know what? I could totally teach this to my kids now and with purpose in small little pieces. So let's talk about it. What is accountability? By definition, I actually got this from the dictionary. It said, the obligation or willingness to accept responsibility for one's actions and to explain or justify them. So it's these two parts. It's like you do what you said you would do, right? That's being accountable. And if you don't, you take responsibility and fix it. So it's these two pieces. So I really want you to consider that. One, you need to make a plan, a clear plan. So for me, I will go to the dentist and get my cleaning every 6 months. That's my plan. But it's not enough to just say I'm going to do that. I actually need the second part. This is where that responsibility piece is important because it's the check-in. It's me showing up and being like, hey, Dr. K, I'm back, even though I don't want to be. But it's the showing up part. And I absolutely believe smiling is optional in the case of dentistry. That's how it works. But the question is, are you using it, showing it to your kids, and teaching it to them as well? Are you teaching your children to be accountable, to first make a plan, not your plan, their plan, and then to own the follow through? Two pieces is very important. And I will tell you, there's of course research-backed ideas that support exactly what I'm talking about. So first off, planning that gets really specific does improve follow through. There was a psychologist by the name of Peter M. Gollwitzer. He coined a term called implementation intention, which really is kind of like an if-then statement. So it would sound like this. If it is Monday at 9 a.m., then I will start working on my writing for 30 minutes. That's what implementation intention is. And our kiddos need to be doing this. They need to be saying, if this, then that. This is them starting a piece of accountability. And when people form concrete plans, they do attain more of their goals. I think of times when I've talked with a friend, maybe we've finished a coffee date, and then I'm like, you know what, we should do this next month. And we are like, yeah, we totally should. And we want to, but we never do. 2 months go by, 3 months go by, versus before we leave, we're like, hey, take out your calendar, grab your phone. Are you free next month on the 20th? I'm free. Should we book our next coffee date? Which one is more likely to happen, especially on the date that we put it in there? So again, these concrete plans, that's really important. And same for our children. Concrete plans matter, and you don't need to have them for every single thing that they do. It's not to overwhelm them, but it is to start conversations about them. The second part would be those check-ins. And check-ins increase engagement. So at Brown University, they did a study. And what they found is that when they increased teacher to family communication, the student engagement went up. And they measured things like homework completion and classroom participation. That increased. And that's because when trusted adults check in with those kiddos, and you being that trusted adult and you're checking in with your children, kids will show up more consistently. And that's true as adults too. Have you ever had somebody hold you accountable for something, a goal that you set? Maybe it was a fitness challenge or a weight loss challenge, and you had an accountability, a budgeting or finance person that you're like, hey, hold me accountable here. There's a reason why people do it that way. One, creating the clear plan, but also having that check-in. It's not about hovering. It's about pairing what plan you came up with some kind of a touch point. And the thing that I see is that in homeschooling, freedom is such a great benefit. I think we all love that, but it can also become too loosey-goosey around the house. So I'm going to give you that secret sauce advantage, and that is to use accountability. And if you're not already, I will give you a couple ideas for you to kind of try it out. And if you are doing it, what is working and what might you need to tweak or adapt to make it even better? Because at the end of the day, those kids that are held accountable for making a plan and sticking to it, they get more done. As well, you will have more fantastic conversations, especially when things don't go the way they said they would go. And that's important. Accountability is about ownership, not punishment. It's about getting curious. Well, you said you were going to do that. What happened? Talk to me. And see, are they trying to play the victim card, or are they taking ownership? Great conversations can come out of this. It's about giving our kids direction, not rigidity. There are classroom teachers who are managing dozens of children in their rooms every day. And guess what? They do not have the time or the bandwidth to have the one-on-one opportunities like you do. You are so fortunate as a homeschooling parent. You get to teach your kids how to manage themselves, how to show up for themselves, how to honor their word, their promises that they make to themselves, to take ownership, and when they don't, to own that, but without shame. More again from like this curiosity space. So as you know, if you are a repeat listener, I always strive to give you some real life examples. So here's a practice loop that I will share with you that you could apply and teach in any subject. And I will use writing as our example. That's kind of my wheelhouse. And I have a lot of accountability intentionally built into my programs. That's very purposeful. And so many parents thank us for what we do to help their kids be so successful. And when people say, why do you think your program has such a high completion rate? I say, because we have so many accountability pieces in place. So 4 steps for you. Step 1, you've got to decide on your weekly goal. Okay, so pick a subject, pick a goal. Again, I'm going to pick writing. So we have an essay that we teach, and we take 4 weeks to do it. And every week is a different name. So like week 1 is called preparation week. And there are probably 7 or 8 activities for them to do in preparation week. So if they said, okay, well, my goal this week is to finish everything in preparation week by Friday, by lunchtime, then boom, we've got an accountability goal happening right there. Step 2, teach them how to break those tasks into smaller sessions. So like I said, we have 7 or 8 things. We create a calendar for them where we set blocks of about 30 to 40 minutes worth of work for them to do on any of those given days. So they'll see 5 blocks. Each block should take about 30 or so minutes so that it doesn't feel super overwhelming. Step 3, they need to write down what they're going to be held accountable to do, or you need to write it down for them somewhere that they're going to see it. So like I said, we create monthly calendars for our young writers. And again, I do this very purposefully because I know if a child says, what am I supposed to do? I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do today. Chances are their brain will then suggest, how about nothing? How about we do nothing today? Because that's just being human. So it's so important that if you want to be more accountable, you have to have it where you can see it before you have to think about it. And the 4th step is to ensure that you're checking in. That last piece, super important. So whether you check in at the end of the week, or you check in at the beginning of the week about the previous week, however you do it, it can vary. And again, how often do you have to do it? Maybe you need to do it daily. It depends. Is your child super independent? You think they'll get everything done? Or maybe it's a day-to-day check-in. Totally up to you. There's not a right or wrong way, but be consistent. So we ask our students to email us at the beginning of each week. We give them an email template, so we're actually teaching them how to properly email a teacher. I think that's a good writing skill. But on top of it, they need to tell us where they are. And in doing so, they are letting us know if they are on target, maybe they're a little bit ahead, maybe they're a little behind, maybe they're a little confused. And we respond back to their email. And we congratulate them, or we give them some encouragement, or we answer what their questions are. So they always know every week we want to know what's happening. And then we create that communication that goes back and forth. So important, okay? So if you're like, okay, I want to do this. I want to set up some accountability. Great. Step 1, decide on a goal. It could be daily or weekly. Step 2, break that task or multiple tasks into kind of bite-sized pieces. Step 3, have it written down somewhere on a calendar, on a checklist, a to-do list, whatever you want, but have it there where they can see it, and then schedule your check-ins. They again, could be daily, they could be weekly, whatever works for you, okay? I will tell you that as a classroom teacher, I wore so many hats. I didn't just teach. What teacher just teaches? I don't know any. And I know you don't just teach either when it's school time. You're doing so many other things too. Me too. I always felt like I was working on my listening skills. I was working on being an encouragement to my students. Sometimes I needed to discipline and hold them accountable for not doing what they said they would. And of course, I loved on them. I loved on those little humans like nothing else. All of that is part of our job. And as educators and as moms, we have to remember we are building a whole person. So we want to help our kids. We want our children to become people who will know how to reach their own goals because we taught them how to set a goal, break it into manageable pieces, write it down so you don't forget to do it, and have some kind of a check-in person. When we know that our kids can now reach their own goals, oh, that's going to feel so good. And to know that they can be trusted to keep their word to others, but especially to themselves, that's gold. So let's not wait for them to completely grow up before we teach these kinds of valuable life skills. I'm telling you, now is the perfect time. So why not give your kids an accountability advantage? Right on. And that's it for today. Thank you so much for joining me. And hey, if you are feeling stretched thin and you would love some support with teaching writing, I offer programs designed to make that part of homeschooling easier and more enjoyable for both you and your child. I also have free resources on my website, so please be sure to check those things out and subscribe to the podcast. You do not have to do this alone. Right on.